Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. I'm a bit hoarse. I've lost my voice. And it's not from shouting, actually. It's not from shouting, but I'm not going to speak too long, trying to regain my voice before Shabbos, please God. So, today's learning is a memory of all those that we have Yortzeit for in the community and those that we are learning for. In the year. The names include Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Yeriyahu Chiba Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Chia ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Sion ben Yitzchak, Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Bible, Abram Mordechai ben Moshe Katner. We wish their respective families long life and only simchas. One of the themes that runs through, and let me just say good morning, apologies, how rude of me not to say good morning to my beloved Carol, Peter, Martin, and Rachel and Estelle. Good morning to each and every one of you. So wonderful to see you. I have to say, I have a spring in my step. Last night we had meetings about weddings. There's many chasnas, many chuppahs that are taking place this summer. Please God, all being well. And that is something which has been missing for months and months on end, and it is an integral and an essential part of the life cycle of being Jewish. So we look forward to that. So I want to share with you a little idea and some thoughts as we heard last night that there is a ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas. So one would think that I would be jumping for joy, elated. You know, we're all can breathe a sigh of relief. It means there's going to be a de-escalation. In terms of the tensions, in terms of the emotions which are running high, and the irrational behavior that we saw in the case of the hostilities in Israel as well as here. But I have to tell you that I'm not, because what is a ceasefire, friends? Carol, what is a ceasefire? You know what a ceasefire is? It just means that we're no longer actively trying to kill one another. That's all a ceasefire is. There's a huge chasm between a ceasefire and shalom, peace. Okay? The two are not synonymous. And a ceasefire, right, does not necessarily mean that peace is a natural continuation. You can have a ceasefire, you can have a common understanding, but it doesn't mean that there's peace. What exactly is peace? What is peace? So the word peace, actually, it's a theme in this week's Torah portion, which is one of the reasons I'm discussing it with you all, is the word shalom. Shalom we're all familiar with, but the root of the word is shalem, is wholesomeness. We know that in the aftermath of Jacob's epic encounter and struggle and battle with the mysterious adversary that he fought, the celestial being that represented Esau, we know that he hobbled away, and he was, as the sun rays came onto the horizon, so he was healed. He was shalem. He was whole. Okay. Okay, sorry, it's all kicking off. Let me just make sure that goes on silent. Okay, apologies for that. So that is the idea. And so when we are looking for peace, peace really means completion, wholesomeness, okay, as opposed to a state of incompleteness, of where there is division. Now, peace does not mean that we all have the same opinion. Let me give you an example. So we know that there were, over the course of the Talmudic, the Mishnaic period, there were disagreements between Hillel and Shammai. That became more manifest in between the students, the house of Hillel, Beis Hillel, and the house of Shammai, Beis Shammai. Many famous disputes between the two. And yet, Hillel's grandchildren married Shammai's grandchildren. How can that be? They disagreed fundamentally, time and again. And yet, these two families, these two mishpachas, these great prestigious names in our liturgy, in our literature. Their families came together and decided to make shidduchim between them. And the answer, of course, is because unity does not mean uniformity. You can have diverse opinions, and yet you are still able to bring your differences together and to be able to complement each other. In fact, if you think about it, the most beautiful, exquisite music is with different notes. It's not with the sameness, it's with the difference. The most beautiful piece of art is where there is the contrast between the various shades and colors. And so it is in life that is the majesty and the tapestry of life, is where we are able to mesh together the differences that we have. And that is why the Almighty, as it says in the Talmud, he made every single one of us different. There are no two people, even identical twins, that are exactly the same. I actually had identical twins in my class at school and in my year in school, and they, sometimes were able just occasionally to swap classes, and nobody knew except their contemporaries. But the teachers were certainly not aware. So, but even identical twins are still, if we really know them, they are fundamentally different. They are different personalities. They've got different strengths, different weaknesses. And so it is when it comes to marriage, we know that it is all about those complementing each other. It's very rare that I've met a couple that are going to get married and that they are the same. More often than not, good marriages and any good friendships and relationships are where people are very different from each other, but they are able to complement and to supplement and to, one and another. And that is really the purpose of life. If we're all the same, then God doesn't need. He can just make one person in one mold, and that's it. The whole idea of being different is that we are able to work together and to complement each other. So therefore, when it comes to peace, it is not necessarily, it is more often than not that we do not come to an agreement where we are all exactly of the same perspective, but there is an agreement as to the way forward. I always say it's not his way or her way, it's our way. In other words, in marriage and in relationships and even in business, it's not necessarily one person's perspective that wins the day, and it's not necessarily the other person's perspective. It is that combined thought process, negotiation, conversation and dialogue that eventually you arrive at a fresh understanding as what works best for all the parties concerned. And so it is, I think, when it comes to the Middle East, if it is a matter of one side coming out winners and the other one's coming out losers, then there cannot be peace, because both sides are here to stay, right? Both sides are here to stay. The Palestinians, right, are part of our civilians and part of humanity, and the Jewish people also. And each of them, have a valuable contribution to make. Now, of course, that I'm not talking about Hamas, I'm talking about the Palestinians. And therefore, the key is that there should be, and I know there are people that are actually working on it at the grassroots, some conversations and dialogue, and focusing on the commonality between the two sides. And then hopefully they can work around their differences, and then they can work towards a peaceful resolution. And eventually, if that spreads, right, if you have a swathe of people in society which are on the same page and want to move forwards and do not longer want to fight, then we are in a position where the Hamas will be in a complete irrelevance. And that's, please God, what we all hope and pray for. But just to make that point again, a ceasefire is not shalom. Shalom is where there is that wholesomeness, where we're able to complement each other, where we are working with, there is no two sides, they are all working together. And the different pieces of the jigsaw, the different pieces, different notes of the symphony, which come together to complete the composition. And therefore, that is our hope and our prayer. It's interesting. There's discussion about the priestly blessing. Is it that we are discussing about when we ask for Hashem to make peace, are we asking for peace on a national level, or are we asking for peace on an individual basis? Which way are we? What are we referring to? What's the interpretation? And there are different views, of course, as always. But I saw a beautiful understanding last night that in fact the two are not mutually exclusive, but the way that we come to a national shalom, a national peace, it only works, it only occurs if it starts with the grassroots, it starts with the individuals, it starts with the families, it starts with the couples, the marriages, the relationships with children and parents, and so on and so forth. And once that happens, then that, of course, the concentric circles get bigger, and eventually it fills the whole of the Jewish people. So it is between different countries, that it is only when there is a national, right? There is that national understanding and that national wish for peace. So who was it? I think Golda Meir that said, there'll be peace between us and the Arabs when they love their children or something more than they hate, or they want to, they want love their children more than they want to kill us or something like that. But the idea is that there has to be this way of thinking, that people have an appreciation for life more than wanting to kill the other person. And that is our hope and our fervent prayer. So we are not trying to make everyone the same, quite the opposite. We celebrate the diversity, part of the symphony of life, but the whole idea is that everyone is pulling in the same direction. Everyone is working together, recognizing that when we do so, the sum is greater than the total amount of the parts, and in that way we'll be able to achieve, please God, something quite majestic. There's that old joke, I don't know if you remember it, Peter, I told it many years ago about there was this biblical zoo, and they had this great spectacle that everyone came to see. What was the spectacle? Anyone remember? Estelle, Rachel, remember it? Martin? So the spectacle was that they had the lion laying down with the lamb. And of course, we know that this is one of the Isaiah's prophecies, right? Yes, love their children more than they hate us. Thank you, Hannah. So they had this great spectacle where the lion was laying down with the lamb, and everyone queued up to see it, right? Isaiah's prophecy that there would be peace at the end of time between all people and all animals. Anyways, one of the people went up to the zookeeper and he said to him, "That's quite remarkable. We've never seen anything like it, that you've got a lion laying down with a lamb. How did you manage to achieve that?" He said, "Very simple. Every morning we put in a new lamb." That is certainly not what we want. We don't want start-stop in terms of the peace process, where it's not real, it's just a ceasefire and just a means for a breather for people to reload and to increase the ammunition so that we start again. Please God, there be lasting peace for all of the Jewish people, the Arab world, and therefore that, of course, will hasten an end of the exile and this redemption. May it come speedily in our days. Amen. Apologies if you can't hear me very well. I'm a bit hoarse this morning. It's been a long week. Okay. The Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still water. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Lamim Zacho es Nishmas Ami Bas Ari Paul Kazmi Yirmiyahu ben Moshe Eliezer Shlomo ben Moshe Eliezer Eliezer ben Sion ben Yitzchak Ari ben Shimon Leah Bas Bible Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna Shalchu Lilamam Bekan Eden Teimenu Chosam Lachim Balarachamim Yatzivein Besesikon Apam Liolamim Vayetzovas Chaims Nishmasam Ananachlasam Vianuch Bishlomish Kavam Venomar Amen. Lastly, for Shlema prayer for all those that have been injured in the horrendous conflict, in the attacks, and also, of course, remembering those that were injured last week in the bleachers and Givat Zev, when in the Kulin Stolin Tish collapsed. And I'm delighted to tell you that I spoke to I WhatsApped with Rabbi Rafi Goodwin, who told me that he's recovering well and he's back at work, and he even managed to come to shul. So we're delighted to hear that young rabbi from Chigwell has made a recovery after that horrendous attack against him. And of course, the perpetrators have been arrested. Mi sheberach avasein Rabin Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarech Rabbi Zochelim Babu Shanim Mispalim Babu Ram Bezras HaKadosh Baruch Yimalei Rachem Aleichem Lachmal V'Zam Yishlach Lem V'Shlem Shemaim Lechalovim B'Zach Shach Yisrael Refuas HaNefesh V'Vos HaGuf Hashavak Zman Karev B'Noma Amen. Interestingly, that Chigwell Shul, I read that in the aftermath of this, one of the things that they are trying to do is to work with the grassroots so that there should be an education and an understanding about the Jewish community, interfaith work, so that those that, out of pure ignorance, decided to carry out an anti-Semitic attack will have learn the lesson, so that there is that mutual understanding and respect. And that is precisely what I'm talking about when it comes to Shalom, and that's what I'm talking about in Israel, okay? There are no winners when you have one side trying to impose their will on the other. It has to be that it's collaborative, that it evolves over the course of time, and it starts not with the politicians, not with the Western media. It starts at the grassroots. Wishing everyone well. Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you 7:30 tonight on the Zoom from Shul. Take care. Be well.